Good morning, guys, one more time, and let's continue with the next point. Now, if you can recall, yesterday we started with something called as object-oriented programming, and if I'm not mistaken, I mentioned how to start creating a simple or empty class. Now, probably if you can recall, we should start using page one, and there we can start writing a very simple line of code. So this is again, if I click new page 1.py, there it is, and I want to start writing a simple example, simple class, and let's see how it can be done. Now if you want to create a class, again, before we start writing a class, let's understand the requirement one more time. Again, we already have discussed that yesterday, but still quickly, so that everyone can be on the same page. So probably imagine that we are having a person data. Let's say this is person one, and person is having, let's say, name, that's person one, and let's say an age which is around, let's say, 30. And I want to keep multiple persons data, like person one, person two, person three, so on and so forth. I can do that by using multiple dictionaries, or maybe I can put all of these dictionaries in one single list and I can deal with it. But when it comes to perform some operations, let's say I want to check whether the person is eligible for voting. So I can say there is a def, say can vote there. If I say this is the person as a dictionary, I can write the code accordingly. Like if the person of age is greater than or equals to 18, then I would say something like print yes, or otherwise I'll simply say no. So this is what we generally say to check whether the person is eligible for voting, as simple as that. Now, if you pay close attention to this, or maybe one more function, let's say can print info, which is again, I want to print the information about that person, which is going to print only a name. Say this is going to be a person of name, and let's say print what's the other one, age. So I want to print the person age and person's name. So if I want to do it, I can do that by using a function like print info, so that we don't have to write that code again and again. So using function, we already have achieved the code reusability. But you know, the problem here is I can call this function, let's say can vote, by passing person one, and also the print info by passing person one. So it works. There is no problem here. I can say that the person is eligible for voting, and I can say the person details. But if I pay close attention to this scenario, it seems like the functions we are using here, they are tightly bound with the dictionary object we are using there. What do you mean by this? This means if I use this can vote and pass something other than the dictionary, maybe not even 10 as an integer, but if I pass another dictionary, which is a kind of a mobile dictionary. So this is the model. For example, I'll say iPhone, and let's say company, which is say none other than Apple. So this is a dictionary. Earlier I created a dictionary. This is also a dictionary, but still if I run my application, you see my application crashes. I mean, it crashes immediately because it doesn't find that key named age, and that's a reason why it is not working. So more of the story here is, when you are writing this code, you already had made your mind that whatever functions you are writing here, they are associated with the dictionary here. The dictionary here is kind of a data, the data which is representing a person object. Or probably I can just take this data out and say this is a mobile. So we can pass that mobile here. Again, this is the data about describing a mobile. So whenever you are thinking about that functionality comes second. What comes first is the data. According to the data, you will write the code. And that's what I said earlier as well. Today, what is more important in the world, and that is nothing but the data. So data is something that our focus will be on, and that's the reason we have to change our thinking process as well. Earlier, we were writing the functions first and then paying attention to the data. But starting from today, we are going to start thinking about the data first and then associated methods on top of it. Now, if you pay attention to again this one, it seems like print info and can vote will not be able to work with any other dictionary than a person dictionary, which simply means both of these methods, or both of these functions, sorry, not methods, both of these functions are closely dependent or tightly dependent on the dictionary data that we are representing here on line number 14. Now, if we are saying this, I mean, I can say that logically that person one and print info and can vote, they are kind of dependent, or they are kind of related together. Instead of just saying this, why can't we just put them all together in one single unit? So if you really want to do it, that a unit which is going to bring your data and the methods associated with that data together is called as a class. So basically my intention here is to bring the data and associated functionality into one single unit, and that unit can be represented as a class. That's what I want to do here. So I thought of maybe creating a person class like this, which is going to represent a person object. So precisely, again, this class is going to do nothing. So I'll say that this is class person, and that person is not having anything inside it. It's an empty class. And today we will start with the empty class like I started yesterday. So this is going to be an empty class. Those who already have seen object-oriented programming from other languages like C++, or maybe Java, or maybe Swift, or maybe something like a C#, I would request all of you to keep your all object-oriented concepts aside, because those concepts are implemented in other languages having different thought process. The Python which we are learning here and the object-oriented concepts we are going to see now, these are completely different than other languages. So please do not compare them. Okay, so if you are trying to compare them, you will get confused. So do not compare anything like Python object oriented with C# or Java or other languages. Otherwise the things will become complicated. Look at the object oriented concepts from Python from a completely different angle. Let's see, I'll explain what I mean by this, but again, please do not try to compare it. Now, being said that, I have a class here, the class which is representing a person. Right now, this class is not having anything, but I want to make use of it. So how do I do that? To start using a class, I want to first create an object of it. If you can recall, I gave an example of class as a kind of a blueprint, the blueprint which is kind of referred while building a building or while constructing a building. So before you start constructing a building, you create the blueprint so that you will get an entire idea like how the building will be, where the where the different rooms will be laid out, where will you find a window, where you will find a door, what will be the height of window, what will be the height of door, and so on and so forth. So basically looking at the blueprint, you get an exact clear idea about how your construction will look like when it is going to be finished. So this is kind of defining a template to create an object. So this is not an object, this is a kind of a class. So this is going to define a, this is going to use, this is going to be used for defining an object. So how do I create an object then? To create an object, the process is called as an instantiation. I mentioned that word yesterday as well. Instantiation means creating an object of a class. Now for us, the class is person, and I want to create an object of this class by saying person equals to person. So when I say person equals to person, it feels like we are calling a function, but this is not a function precisely, this is a class. So when we say we are having a kind of a class, and if I want to create an object out of it, this is the syntax. Syntax is the one on the left hand side is generally called as a reference. We already have seen that many a times now. And the one on the right hand side is nothing but an object. So basically what happens in the memory is like it creates an object in a separate memory block. It creates a reference, and then it references that object by keeping an address of that object. I'll show you that example here. Pay attention. This is literally different than other languages. Okay, let's come back here. This is a very, very simple class. There is nothing inside it. It's literally an empty class. You can see that right here. And I want to create an object of this class, or I want to create a, or maybe I want to instantiate it like this. Person is equals to person. The moment you do this behind the scene in your maybe in your memory, this is what is going to happen. So probably I'll say that this is one memory block, and there will be another memory block somewhere here. Maybe I'll just make it a little bit larger. It's not the case, but it will be very difficult for me to manage that rectangle. So I'm going to start with a bigger one. So this is how we are going to start creating the scenario. So probably the one on the left hand side, I mentioned that this is going to represent a person, and the one on the right hand side, which is going to represent an object, which is kind of the person parenthesis. It's like this. So this is a person somewhere here, and this is going to be the person's object, the object which is going to get created by using that class. So I'll just mention it here so you'll get an idea, like this is an object. Precisely, this is an object. What do you see here on the left hand, on the right hand side, sorry, and on the left hand side, this is called as a reference. The reference which keeps the reference of an object. Naturally, both of them will have their own memory addresses. So I'm going to say this is the memory address of that object. Exactly same diagram. I know I've repeated this diagram many a times now, and you might have maybe by hearted this diagram now, because it's like Exactly, same for all the other concepts, because you know what, in Python everything is an object, and to create an object we need a class. So this is a kind of a scenario right now. So basically this is pointing to this particular memory block, and right now when I say something like person is equals to person, in that case small p person is nothing but a reference, and capital P person is nothing but a class which is used to create an object. This is what the current scenario is. Now let me just go back here and try to print this, try to print this person and see what is there inside it. So you see that there is nothing right now. It just tells me that this is an object of a person class. Leave this today. I mean, just ignore this for today. We'll talk about this once we are done with object oriented. By the way, this is called as the module. The module name is called as underscore underscore main underscore underscore. What do you mean by this? We'll explain that later. Right now, focus on this one. This is a class. This is an object of a class which is loaded at this particular memory location. So this is what the information it is going to display. I'm not interested in where it is loaded because I want to see what is there inside it. Now to see what is inside it, the object is going to provide a kind of a dunder attribute called as underscore underscore dict underscore underscore. I hope you know that, and I mentioned this many a times. Excuse me. So this underscore 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 here is generally referred as a dunder. So we are going to say that person provides a dunder dict attribute, which is going to tell you like how the object is represented in the memory. By the way, dict represents a dictionary or dictionary of your object. Dictionary of your object in a sense, whatever is there in that object will be represented in a dictionary format. When I say run, probably you see that it is giving me a empty dictionary because there is nothing inside it. There is nothing inside it because we didn't put anything inside the class. So this is an empty class, and this provides me nothing in a sense. It's literally an empty object, and you see that this is an empty object here. Now I want to make use of it. How do I do that? Now to make use of it, first you need to understand what exactly do you mean by an object. I mean, I mentioned this yesterday as well, but let me mention it one more time. What is an object? Object is nothing but collection of key value pairs. Basically, what you want to have here is nothing but the key value pairs. Now here, we generally do not call them as keys. We generally call them as attributes. So basically, I'll rephrase what I just said. Keys here are nothing but the attributes. So what do you mean by an object then? The object is nothing but collection of attribute value pairs. Attribute is nothing but the key. So basically a dictionary is representing collection of key value pairs. Exactly on the similar basis, an object is going to represent a collection of attribute value pairs. Those keys you find in dictionary can be referred as attributes inside a dictionary, inside an object. That's the only small terminological change, but otherwise the things are exactly similar. Okay, right now there is nothing, but now I want to make use of it. So how do I do that? Now for the first time, I'm going to add a new key. Add a new key or add a new attribute. Now I'm not going to use a word something like a key here. I'm going to continuously saying attribute, but just again understand that attribute is nothing but the key. So key is in dictionary, attribute is an object. Both of them are representing the same concept here. They are representing the values. That's it. So I want to add a new attribute. How do I do this? Now see, to do this, I'm going to call a function. I'm going to call a function. Now please remember what I say. Again, starting from today, it's very important to use a proper terminology because function is different and method is different. We haven't talked about the method yet. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But right now, I'm calling this as a function. So I'm saying this is the function called as a set attr. Set attr. I hope you can understand. Set means you're setting what? Attr. Attr means an attribute. So you want to set an attribute. Attribute of what? So I want to set an attribute of person. What attribute do you want to set? So probably I want to set an attribute named the name and value as person1. Okay. So basically what we have done here is like we have added an attribute inside the class, inside an object referred by that person. Okay, let us see what does it look like. I mean, I want to print that dictionary one more time and just see what exactly is inside this now. Let me run this and you will see that, oh, I have added a name attribute somewhere here, which means name becomes a key and person1 becomes a value. Now, doesn't it make a sense here? Because it is kind of representing a dictionary, and dictionary is nothing but a collection of key value pairs. The only difference here is the key is referred as an attribute. So this is an object you have created. referred by person, and all you are saying here is set attr person name person1. Let me come back here and say this is what now we are kind of executing the line of code, and let's see what happens now. So probably I'll just make a small arrangement here. It will be easy for me to put all of this code in one single line. So I'll say that this is the way we are kind of setting an attribute. So basically when I say set attribute here, what happens here? So probably what you're going to see here is this. So there will be a curly bracket just to represent this as a dictionary. Otherwise, in memory, you will not find that curly bracket there. Just curly bracket is for our understanding. For me, the more important thing is this. So it is going to represent a key value pair or attribute value pair in this format. So that is more important. So let us come back here and say this is how the name and address, I'm sorry, name and person1 will be represented. So it's exactly like a representation of a dictionary. That's what we are doing here. Vipin, what pass is doing here? Pass is doing nothing. I hope I mentioned that earlier as well and yesterday as well. Pass just seems like it's doing nothing. It's doing nothing in a sense. If you put that pass inside a function, then the function is called as an empty function. If you put that inside a class, this is called as an empty class. Empty class means there is nothing inside the class. The class is literally empty, and that's what I said earlier as well. When I created an object out of it, you saw that last time it was completely empty. Now by using setAttr function, I'm adding one attribute named name with the value person1. Okay. Now I'm going to come back and say, hey, I want to add the address and age as well. How do I do this? Same thing again, setAttr. I want to add a person. I want to add a kind of a attribute, something like address, for example, and the value would be something like Pune, right? Pune, like this. Now, along with this, I want to also add, let's say, age. So see this. This is a person. This is an age. This time, I'm going to use an integer value. So last time, both name and address were strings, but this time, age is kind of an integer. It doesn't matter. So probably I'll just make sure that I'm adding both of them here. So this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. So now there are 3 attributes in my person object. So this is what we are doing here. And when you do it step by step, you see, earlier I was having only name. Now I'm having the address and age as well. So that simply means this is going to be the case. This is an address like this. And let's put this one as well and say this is this is an age and this is an address. That's it. So this is what you will find right inside this object. Again, pay attention to the way I'm trying to show you here. So this is a kind of, dictionary representation of it. That's it. This is how we are kind of adding a simple attributes inside an object. So this is a kind of list of key value pairs where the keys are known as attributes. Just for your understanding again, these are nothing but the attributes. So I'll call them as attribute or attributes precisely, who cares again. This is an attribute and this is a value. So that's it, so this is a value. So probably you can say that what you see here is an attribute on this side and what you see here is a value. And again, all of them are attributes and all of them on the right hand side are values. So please remember the terminology. This is called as an attribute. This is called as a value. Fine. Now you know how to set the values. Now I think using dictionary representation, we could see this name, address, age. These are the attributes added inside that object. Fine. Actually, I don't want to see them as dictionary data or dictionary key value pairs. I want to literally get them separately. In a sense, I want to print the name separately, address separately, and age separately. So how do we do this? Check this out. I can say that print, again, what is the name of that person? To get a value of an attribute. See, to set an attribute, we used a method set. Sorry, we used a function set. And to get a value of an attribute, we are going to use a get attr. Makes sense. To set, we are using set. And to get, we are using get. So this is a kind of get attr. The object or the reference is person and the attribute name I want to retrieve the value of. I want to say that this is the name. So what we are doing here is like getting a getting value of an attribute name. That's it. It's exactly like what you might have seen in other languages. Absolutely, Preeti. Setters and getters. Exactly. So it is going to set an attribute. This is going to get an attribute. That's it. As simple as that. Now I'll come back here. I'll say one more time, this is an address which is equals to get attr. This is the person, and the attribute name is an address. One more time, last time rather, this is going to be an age of that person. Maybe I can again say get attr person and age. This is an attribute that we want to go for. So all we are saying here is like, oh, I'm sorry, my bad. I must have done that twice. My bad. Exactly. Sorry, Prashant, and thank you for letting me know. Exactly. So get attr person name, get attr person address, get attr person age. Exactly. So let me run this code, and probably you will see that now I'm able to get the values of those attributes. Name is equals to person1, address is equals to Pune, and age is equals to 40. I simply can get all the values of that attributes one by one by calling the function getAttr. Okay. So probably you see here, I'm trying to get the attributes values, and we are trying to set the attribute values by using set and get attr functions. I hope you can understand that. Okay, Vishal, I think you now can understand why exactly we are doing here. Prashant, that was my mistake. I think I only have cleared that mistake as well. So now everything is looking good. So basically, this is the current scenario. So now we are having a kind of an object which is having 3 attribute value pairs, and you are simply retrieving those values. So basically, when you say get attr, again, I don't have to put every single thing there, but okay, just for an example, should I? It's better. So let's complete the first program. So maybe I don't have to talk about this again and again. So this is what we are doing. We are kind of printing the value of an attribute name, of an attribute address, and of an attribute age. So let me put it in this way. And simply speaking, you are going back to that object and you are getting the value of those attributes. So precisely speaking, again, it is going to get the value of this attribute, as simple as that. This is going to get a value of this attribute, as simple as that. And finally, this is the last one, which is going to get a value of an age. So that's it. This is going to get a value of this attribute. That's it. So that's how it works. So basically, it goes to that object, it gets the value of an attribute, and you are done. As simple as this. Any questions so far? I don't think you should be having any question because it's very simple, but still, if you have any question, please ask right now. So if there is no question, I can continue for the next point. Person is here, object reference to person class. Exactly. Person here is a reference to an object representing a person's class. Absolutely right, Pranit. Okay. Shripati, usually class file extension .cs. How about the Python language? That's what I said, Shripati, earlier. Before I started with that subject, I said do not compare Python with anything else because the things are literally different. I don't know whether you have seen this or not, but all the time we are using only one extension by default. It is py. Py is the extension for file. Okay. So it doesn't matter whether you are writing that in a separate class or whether you are writing in a same class. I'm sorry, you are writing in a same file or you are having a multiple files. It doesn't matter. Okay. Shubham, can we give any name to a reference? Of course, yes. I mean, I used a person because I wanted to make it more clear. Okay. For example, let's say I want to create one more. This time I want to go for person2. Whatever you can say. Person2 is a second object. I mean, this is a completely new object. Again, the same story will be repeated. This will be an empty object. If I really want to try that out, I can go back and say this is going to be a person2 person2 dot underscore dict underscore. That is going to represent a kind of an empty object. And then again, same story. Set attr person2. I want to add anything there. It doesn't matter. It should be a name or something. You can add anything there. So this is a person. Again, set attr. Say this is person2, and probably I'm going to say address and say this is going to be Mumbai. And one more time, let's say set attr. This is going to be person2, and probably this is an age. I'll say the age is equals to 10. As simple as that. There is nothing there is nothing new that we haven't seen yet. So it's exactly what we have seen last time. So it's just another object. You see, that was my earlier that was my first object, and this is my second object. Exactly similar. Okay. Maybe Vikas, your question. Instead of writing a pass in the class, can we not define a class in other languages? we are going to that step one by one. I mean, I don't want to directly start with the class saying the class is having all those things. I want to start with simple thing. So probably I can just request you to wait for that. You will get this. It's not like we are going to write the code like this. This is just starting point. It's not a final one. It's just a first program we are writing a class with, right? So there are many things coming, but I don't want to make it complicated to start with. So to start with, I want to tell you that this is an empty object and we can keep on adding all the attributes as per our requirement. Okay. So think from other perspective. That's what I said. Think from other perspective, look at it from the different angle. Don't compare it with the others, because in other languages, you start writing a class with all the attributes, all the methods and stuff like that. This becomes a little bit difficult to deal with, to start with. There, in case of Python, you can start with an empty object, and as and when required, you can keep on adding the different attributes there. Okay. Tanya, your question, there is a constructor person as a new class created. Tanya, hold your question. You will get that answer. Do not ask any questions which will be saying, do we have this? Do we have that? Wait, wait, wait. If you start asking the question, the links will get disturbed. So just wait and watch. You are going to reach to that moment where you will see, oh, this is something we have seen in other languages. Wait and you will see. Okay. Patience, patience. Have you seen that movie? Uday, Control? Do it. And probably you will get all the points there, you know. Okay. Shripati, how can you call a class with the other person price? Wait, Shripati, you are going to get an answer. Vipin, can we say even if we are working with OOP, still it's an exclusive execute like POP? Very good question, Vipin. Though it seems like we are working with a class and we are working with object oriented, it feels like we are working with POP. And actually it is a POP. I mean, behind the scene, it is a POP. But Vipin, I would request you to maybe underline that statement and ask that one more time at the end of the entire OOP. Because at the end of OOP, I'll just reveal some secrets. Not right now, but at the end of the POP, I'll reveal some secrets like how it happens behind the scene. Okay, so keep that line noted somewhere, and please make sure that you are adding that line one more time towards the end of it. I definitely will put more light on it. So I'll tell you like what happens behind the scene. Okay. Prerna, does it mean the different objects can have a different attributes if we are not defining the class? Absolutely right. Prerna, you got the point. Actually, that's the point I wanted to make here. It doesn't matter actually whether you are keeping the same attributes or not, but what matters here is when you say something like this, person is equals to person parenthesis or person2 is equals to person parenthesis, it is going to create a new memory location. It is going to create a new object. And because it is a new object, doors are open. You can write anything there, which means it doesn't matter if I say person or if I say name or first name. If I say address or let's say full address, or if I say age, or maybe I can say person age, it really doesn't matter. That's the main point from, I mean, if you compare it with the other languages. So probably I can also add an email, which wasn't there earlier. So in my previous object, I was not having an email, but this person seems to have an email. That's it. This person seems to have a phone number as well. See, this is my second person, and second person seems to have more data about it. So maybe I'll say mobile or phone or whatever you say, and I'll say +91 blah blah blah, something like this. If I say run, probably you can see that, oh, this is another dictionary or another object, and this is completely different object. This is an object-oriented programming in Python. I told you, do not compare it with other languages. Things will become complicated. Think about object-oriented of Python in a completely different way, or maybe think about it as from a different angle. It comes from completely different horizon. So just look at it from a different perspective. When you create an object in other languages, the things are completely different. There they say like you have to create a class, you have to put all the things there, and you have to make sure that every object will look like same or look like that class and other stuff. Here there's no bound. I mean, there is no restriction. You can create an object like this and you can keep on adding as many attributes as you like. And when you say multiple objects representing the same class, like I have created two objects, person and person2, and both of them may or may not have a different values or different attributes like this. See, they can have same, they can have different attributes. There is no guarantee. That's what I wanted you to first understand. whenever you are creating an object, it doesn't matter whether you are having anything here in the class or not. What matters is this is just going to give me a separate memory location, which is free to modify. So here I'm adding 3 attributes. Here I'm adding 5 attributes. Maybe in another example, I can add 10 different attributes. It doesn't matter. There is no connection between this and this. These are 2 different objects. These are 2 different memory locations. These are having 2 different set of attributes. So that's what matters here. Okay. Okay, Shripati, your question. One more question. Are we going to see the get and set property later? Yes, we are. These are different things than what I just showed you here. Okay, we'll see that later, Shripati. Utpal, why are you using the uppercase person? Why I'm using uppercase person? Because when you say class, it is generally again a convention that class name should start with uppercase. Okay, I said that earlier as well. All the variable names will start with small letter or maybe the lowercase, and we are not going to use a camel case. So probably if I say first and name, this is how we generally write. Where is it? Here it is. First underscore name, full underscore address. This is the way to create a variable. This is the way to put an attribute. This is the way to create a key of a collection or of a dictionary probably. But when it comes to a class generally will start with uppercase. And that is the reason why I said that P is kind of uppercase. So Utpal, I think if you are referring to this one, this is the way to creating an object. This is the way to instantiate a class. Okay. Another question, Adesh. Class is a logical entity. Didn't get the space into memory where the object is the physical. Absolutely. So class is you can say class is a template. It does not get a memory in the. I mean, it does not get allocated any memory in your physical RAM. But object, yes, object will get a memory. Adesh, if you are making that statement, I would suggest to put that, please use the channel, public channel, so others can also see your statement, because your statement is going to be important. What I said right now, the object, the class is not going to get memory and object is going to get the memory. Compared to other languages, it is true. But when you are in Python, the things are a little bit different, right? So others read what he said. It's absolutely right from other languages perspective. But as I said, towards the end of object oriented, I will reveal some secrets, and at that time I'll prove something else. Okay, for today it's okay. Today we can say class is not going to get a memory and object is going to get a memory, but later we'll see something else as well. Okay, that's a little bit advanced. I can't just reveal that right now because otherwise the things will become so complicated to understand. So I'll start with some simple stuff first. Rajendra, but you told it is a reference. Rajendra, which one are you talking about? I'm not getting the context. So please let me know what exactly you said. I'll try to explain it again. Chandrakant, if our class contains some attribute, then each object to get those attributes. Yes, when your class is going to have an attribute, each object will get an attribute. But right now your class is an empty, and you see that an object can decide the set of attributes on its own. So there is no hard and fast rule that you have to add all of those attributes in the class. You can add them anywhere at any time. So probably I decided to add name, address, age for person 1, and maybe the first name, full address, person's age, email and mobile for the second person. I'm free to add any attribute there. Okay. Underscore dictator underscore means an empty class. No, this is the way to get the representation of an object in a dictionary format. See, if I don't want to print every single thing like this, I mean, I could have said something like this, like give me the person two's first name, full address, and blah 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 blah. I could have said that, but I don't have that much of time to put all of these things in the, these things in the code. So probably what I can say here is, instead of doing this, I can use a shortcut. Underscore dict underscore or dunder dict is going to represent this information. Name is equals to person, address equals to Mumbai, and age is equals to 10 in terms of a dictionary. So that's what it does. Okay. So a forum here, you can talk about something like class having pass is kind of an empty class. So there is nothing inside this. That underscore dict underscore, it's just for getting the representation of your object in dictionary format. Okay. Rajendra, object is a reference, then how can it with a different memory allocation for a different object of the same class? I think you didn't get what I said. I said when you say person is equals to person, this one, line number 8, and person 2 is equals to person, line number 28, both of them will create a different objects. So probably I can say this is again another object. So create another object. So basically, whenever you are creating a new object, it will always create a new memory location and it will always create a new reference for you. So basically, person here, where is it? Person here and person to here, both of them are references pointing to two different objects. Okay, so they will get a new object, and that's how it works in Python. Nidhi, your question, how class is solving the can vote issue from page 1.py? Of course, it will, but wait a second. I mean, it's not the case like we will start adding every single thing right now. Just wait and watch. How does it solve the problem? Right now, this is a kind of a basic or preliminary object. Now, we'll go for few more examples and we'll see what are the advantages there and how we can start solving that problem. Okay. Probably I'll just keep that example as it is for your reference. I'm going to come back here in page 3 and then see how we can add a new attribute and how we can add a function as well. So let's see how it can be done. Pay attention again. This time also I'm going to create a class person, and I know it's already there. So I'll just keep only one tab open and I'll say pass. This is an empty class. I'll just tell you like what exactly the things we have started with and what exactly the things you will see later, maybe once we are done with the basic or preliminary stuff. This is a class. I want to create an object of this. I'll say P1 for now, and I'll create an object of it by saying person. That's it. Okay. So now once we are having a person, I want to add a few attributes like what I said earlier. P1, maybe I want to add a name attribute. So say name, I'm sorry, name is equals to, let's say person1. Seems like what we have done earlier is exactly what we are doing it right now, but it's okay. P1, let's add an age, and age is equals to 30. More than sufficient for now. Going to create a new object, say P2, 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 and for now I'll keep the attribute same. It's not mandatory that we have to keep the attribute name same. You can change those attributes like what we have done earlier. Now, if you want, you can just go back here and start printing the data. So probably I can say print, what's the name of that person? I don't know. I just want to get the person's name by saying P1, sorry, get attr, say P1, and the name is what I'm looking for. And the same thing, maybe I can say H, which is going to be an attribute name H. The same is true for the second person as well. So probably this is going to be person2, person2. And when I say run, you see that I'm getting the information about person1 and person2 without having any problem. So there is no confusion, there is no problem, because this is something what we just have seen. I mean, this looks okay. I'm getting all the values, I'm getting the right output as well, but something is not right. Something is not right because I see that I'm repeating the same code again and again. Worse, if I want to check if the person is eligible for voting, I'll have to write the same code twice. In a sense, I'll say, hey, get ADTR, P1's age value. If it is greater than or equals to 18, then I'll say print, maybe what is the name of that person? Maybe I'll say get ADTR, that P1, again, name, just to be on a context, like I want to get the person's name and say, is eligible for voting, something like this, else no otherwise. So probably I'll just put that right here and say is not eligible for voting. So I can just write the code again for person2. So you see, whenever I'm creating a new object, I'm repeating the same code again and again so that I can deal with every other object there. So if I say run, you see that person1 is eligible for voting and person2 is not eligible for voting. Things are right. I mean, everything is absolutely right, but somehow I'm not able to convince myself that this is a good or this is the final solution. Seems like we are unnecessarily repeating the code. Look at this, look at this. Look at this part of the code and look at this piece of the code, and you will realize that you are unnecessarily duplicating the code. This is the redundant. I mean, though the answer is correct, but this is not the right solution. And to make this right, I want to add few things there. Okay, Nidhi, you are going to get the answer for your question now. So probably what I'm going to do here is like, I know this is going to represent a person's data. So I'm thinking about creating a function. So I'll say that this is going to be a this is going to be a function like what is that? maybe I'll say print info, something like this. Okay, now print info must get a person object, something like this, right? So again, I'm not going to waste my time. I'll just simply copy and paste it here, and we'll say that this is a kind of a person's name. I'll say that this is person because it's not something like P1. This is the person we are passing here as an object, and then we are printing the data right here. Okay, now simply put, I want to write this code again, this code, and I want to turn it into a function like can vote. This is a person like what I did earlier, and simply put, this P1 will be replaced by person, this P1 will be replaced by person, and we are done. So again, we have created functions. Those functions will operate on the data. So probably this is the function, this is the function, and we are passing the object of that class person. Okay, so if you already have written that code, I don't think this code is required, so I can delete that code. I don't think this code is required, I can delete that code, and instead I can simply call that function, the function which is going to be print info P1 and see can vote P1, you know, and the same thing again, I can say print info, print info P2 and can vote P2. That's it. So basically, last time also I was getting the output, this time also I'll get an output, but this time I see I'm not repeating my code. And of course, it is reducing my code length as well. So basically, this is a kind of better solution than what I've said earlier or what I tried earlier. Of course, this is not a final solution, but still, it is a kind of a better solution than what I did earlier. Okay, now we are coming to the second step. In the first step, we created an object, we added few attributes, we got the values of those attributes, we printed all of them, everything worked well. Now we are on the second step. In the second step, if I pay real close attention, again, the same is kind of reflecting here. We are having maybe two attributes, name and age, inside an object like P1 and P2. And it seems like those two functions, print info and can vote, these two functions are kind of tightly coupled or tightly dependent on that object, on the object of that class person. Agree? I hope. So basically what I'm thinking here is, if these two functions are literally dependent on that object, because tomorrow if I pass something like a dictionary or something like a number, this is not going to work because it is expecting an object of type person which is having an attribute name and age, and I know person object is going to have name and age attribute there. So I'm thinking about something else here. I'm thinking like, fine, it works, but somehow I'm not able to say like this is kind of completely dependent on it. Maybe anyone can call that function separately, you know. So how can I make sure that these two functions are part of the same class? That's what I want to check here. So how do we do this then? Is there any direct way to do it? Yes, there is couple of ways. I mean, there are a couple of ways, but there is there is a initial way to implement this. We'll see some problems of that, and then we'll finally go for the best solution there, you know. So now what I'm thinking here is, like I added that name and age as attributes which are having some values, I'm going to do something similar. I'll say this is set attr, this is P1, and I'll say that, hey, this is kind of a print info which is pointing to the print info. I hope you might get this looking at this particular statement here. You might get this, what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to add an attribute which is pointing to not a value, but is pointing to a function. Do you, ring a bell? Do you remember something? We call this as a function alias, if you can recall. So basically we are trying to say, we are creating a function alias for print info inside that object, which is going to get a kind of a reference stored inside an attribute named print info. Guess what? I'm going to do the same thing for other as well. So set attr, set attr P1. The other one is can vote. So let's do it here. And you will see that this is again can vote. I'm not calling the function, but just keeping the reference here. I'm not going to call these functions now. I'm just going to put references in both the objects, P1 as well as P2. Now, before we say anything, I want to see what is the current state of them. So, bouncer, Prashant, why bouncer? Okay, just give me a sec then. If it is a bouncer, we'll have to think about something else. Uh, Prashant, tell me one thing. Forget about this class and forget about every single thing. Do you remember this? I have a function called as a print info. And if I say something like my function is equals to print info, do you understand that? Prashant, precisely I'm asking to you because you said it's bound. So do you understand this? Okay, what is this? I hope you can recall this is called as a function alias, isn't it? Right? This is a function alias. Now, if I can create a separate variable, my function, and if I say that this is a kind of a function alias, can I not say that maybe I have a dictionary D1 or D1, which is equals to something like a name, and say this is a name, person1, for example, and instead of keeping this as a variable, can I not say something like my person or my function is equals to print info, whatever it is. So what I'm trying to say here is, instead of creating a separate variable, I'll just point this reference, I'll just point that address by using an attribute here. Okay, so can we do that? Of course we can. So this name is pointing to a variable, I'm sorry, pointing to a value person1, and this attribute or this key is pointing to a function. Both of them are addresses. For this, you need to recall the symbol table I mentioned earlier. Both of them will be representing maybe representing an address in the memory. So basically you say person1 means it is going to put the address of that particular value where it is getting stored in the memory. The address here will be pointing not to a value but pointing to a function. Okay, good. So if you have understood this, exactly what I did here in this context. So you are saying that earlier I put that in a dictionary, here I put that inside an object. So I hope, Prashant, now you can understand line number 27 and line number 28. Can you just please confirm? If not, ask the question again, I'll repeat it, no problem. I want all of you to understand what am I doing here, because the other advanced stuff, whatever we are going to see later, they are completely dependent on the basic concept here. Okay. Okay, good that you get it. So now we can say that this is a kind of set attr p1 print info, and probably I'm going to do the same thing for p2 as well. So all we are saying here is few attributes are keeping the values inside them, but few addresses are few attributes are going to point to some other functions. That's the only difference. Yes, we are storing references of either values or functions. That's it. Okay. Shrikant, still here we are writing the repetitive code. It's okay, Shrikant. Right now, it's not the repetition I'm talking about. It's the way we are kind of solving the problem. We'll talk about the repetition and we'll fix that repetition in the second or third program. Okay. Right now, important thing is we have to first see what is the transition. We were in POP part of the world. Now we are coming in OP part of the world. What is the transition we are coming to? That is more important. Okay. Let's see. Excuse me. Adesh, yes, we are storing the references. Absolutely right. Tanaya, print info will not have the parenthesis in the function alias. Of course not. Function alias means you want to get the address of that function. Again, for all of you, maybe those who are not able to recall what a function alias is, I should have kept that, but it's okay. Function alias, this is something like my function, which is equals to a print info. Now, Tanya, answer a quick question here. If I call this function, if I use parenthesis, what do you mean by this? Does that mean we are calling a function and storing the return value of it? Yes, this is not the function alias. If I want to get the function alias, we have to use the function name only, not the parenthesis. Now this is a function alias. The function name is treated as its a reference. Exactly right, because it is a kind of a variable. And I hope I mentioned that earlier as well. Whenever you are creating a function behind the scene, it is going to be treated as a variable. Okay. Okay. Now, long story short, we are having two objects here, which are having few attributes. Now, how many attributes are there? Wait a second. I'll show you here. So I'm going to come back here and say print, what is that? P1 underscore underscore dict underscore underscore. So basically, I want to print the dictionary representation of P1 as well as P2, you know. So let's see what does it print. Now, because we are having two objects, you see, this is the first object, which is having the name and attribute, name and age attribute pointing to different values like person1 and 30. At the same time, can you see that we are having a print info, which is pointing to a function, and we are having a can vote, which is pointing to a function. Oh, simple enough to understand. So both the name age and print info can vote. Both of them, I mean, though they are coming from two different worlds, but still they are attributes, and those attributes are pointing to different functions. Are you getting the point? The main point you need to understand here is like when you are trying to get when you are trying to get something added inside that object, that becomes the part of an object. So now what is happening here? Okay, I shouldn't have. Okay, fine. Just give me a sec, guys. Let me just copy this basic part so it will be easy for me to replicate it. Okay, so can we see that now? Yeah, here it is. And probably I'll go for the second one. I will show you an example of it here. Okay, we don't have any name here. I'm sorry, we don't have any address here. So precisely speaking, again, we don't have any this. I can just put this right here, and I'll show you what exactly is the case here. So there is no address. I'm sorry, there is no address here. There is not needed. I'm sorry, again, sorry, my bad. This is not needed, and probably this is the age. So probably now you will be able to understand this pretty much easily. See what I'm trying to show you here. So basically, can we? Yeah, we can. Just give me a sec. So now we are having two functions here, you know. So where can I put? Okay, I think it's better we can just write it in a separate way. So probably I'm just going to say that there is a function. I'm just going to show you only one. Second, you can imagine yourself. Okay, so probably this is a function here, function print info, for example. And what I'm trying to say here is this. So probably we are having a function. Let me just reduce it a little bit so you can understand what exactly is happening in the memory. I mean, you must have imagined already, but it's okay. Let me put it anyway so that those who are not able to visualize it, they can easily do it by looking at this diagram. This is the function. You need to realize that when you are using a function, the function is going to get again two memory blocks. You know, the first memory block is where you are going to put the address. So maybe I'll say this is 40,000, whatever it is, I don't care. Somewhere here, this is 40,000 here again as usual, and little bit smaller so I can fit it here, and say this is going to be 50,000. So this is a kind of a different memory. This is kind of a different reference, you know. So this is a kind of a print info. Watch what I'm trying to show you. Print info, which is a kind of a reference somewhere here, which is referred as a separate reference, because ultimately this is going to give you an object of function class. So this is going to be again the same, and right inside this box we are going to have the objects, I'm sorry, the functions code or functions body. So this is what we are supposed to add here. So let me just come back, put that code here a little bit smaller. Can we? Yeah, we can. Let me put it right now. And yes, this is how we are going to store it, you know. So the moment you add this code here, you say something like set editr p1, just change a small change here. Instead of p1, I'm going to make it as a personal one. And the moment I say that print info is equals to print info, see what happens here. So probably you are going to say set editr print info. And the moment you say that set editr print info, this is what you might see in the memory. So just a sec, let me arrange it a little bit so it will be easy for you to understand what is going on. So hopefully you'll be able to see it now. I know I'm taking a little bit time, but hopefully you can forgive me for that, because this is something that will make your life really easy. If you understand the basic stuff, believe me, the next part will be pretty much easy to understand. You know what? Generally, I mean, people don't really bother about what happens in the memory, but I came from a different world where, you know, I really bothered about what happens in the memory. That gives me a clear-cut idea how the things are implemented. And if I know how the things are implemented, we can answer any question. I mean, this is something which will give you an edge over the others. So that's what I'm trying to do here. So this is the current scenario. I have a reference print info, and probably I'm kind of saying this is a kind of current scenario here. Now look at this particular part here. I mean, I'm going to highlight it, so probably you can understand what exactly is going on. So this is what we have done right now. So I've just added one more attribute called as print info. So let us see what just has happened. So this is the print info. When you add that attribute, probably you might see that this is going to put a memory address of 40,000. Am I right? 40,000? Yeah, that is right. So it is going to put an address of 40,000 here. I hope you can understand what you mean by 40,000 here. 40,000 simply means you are trying to say the 40,000 is an address of that memory which is getting referred by that print info attribute, you know. So this is what it is kind of doing here. Now, because it is a 40,000, I hope you can imagine that this is a memory address, and because it is a memory address, probably, oh my God, it is going to point to this particular memory location here. Do you understand now? This is a kind of function alias. That's what I said earlier. This is a kind of a function alias, you know. So this function alias is kind of giving you an exact idea about what is going to do, I mean, what is going to happen now. So precisely when I say get attr name, it is going to give you a person 1 as a value. When I say get attr age, it's going to give you 40 as a value. But when I say get attr print info, it's not going to give you a value. It's going to give you an address of that function. So this is what is going to happen in the memory. So probably this will give you this will give an idea about what exactly is going to happen with that print info. Same is true for, what is the other one? Can vote. So I'm not showing can vote here. You probably can do it on your own now. So now if you pay attention, we are having 3 attributes. Out of them, 2 are pointing to functions, and third one here, I mean in this diagram, the third one is pointing to a function. Here we are having 2 storing the values and 2 storing the address of other functions. Now, can I ask you a simple question? Maybe you can easily answer that, but let's see if you can. I want to call that print info function. How do I do that now? I don't want to call it by using a function name print info. I want to call it on that person 1, P1. How do I do this? Any guess? Adesh, so that we can print info, we can call, exactly, that's what I'm trying to say. Exactly. So how do you do that? Any guess here? How do we do this? P1 print inside P1 print info. Yeah, but we haven't talked about that dot yet. We'll talk about that dot in a minute. But before that, I want to use this with the help of getAttr. Anyways, exactly. So what we are going to do here is this. Check this out. I want to first print the print info's value. So print info, which is equals to maybe getAttr P1, and the attribute name here is print info. So if I say print info, just print me what exactly it is. So probably it says that, hey, I'm pointing to a function. And because I'm getting a function here, probably you can say func or function, which is equals to getAttr, something like this, which we already have seen last time. No need to put this again in the memory. So it is pointing to a function. Now you can make a call to that function and pass P1. You know, we are going to solve this problem later, but right now, see what am I doing here? So all I'm saying here is we are calling that function, we are getting that function reference by using getAttr, and I'm calling that function P1. So this function P1, this function here is pointing to print info because we are getting an address of this. And if I say run, probably you can see that I am able to call that function by using something like this. Now I know that this is very difficult to get the things and again print the things and do it something like this. So now I'll show you a shortcut. I'll put this code in comment. This is not what we are going to do every other day, but we are going to do it in a bit simpler way. So you saw that this is a kind of a setAttr and this is a kind of a getAttr. Things are working fine. So probably we can say that now we are calling that function here by using the getAttr as a kind of a reference, as a kind of a value of that particular attribute, and that value is nothing but a function. So you are getting maybe the print info's reference and you are calling that print info function by using the function alias here. That's okay. Is there any better way to do that? So I said yes, there is a better way, and you can say that by using a dot symbol as well. So probably if I want to get name and age, so maybe I can say, hey, give me the name of that person. So maybe you can say P1 dot name as well. So you may say setAttr, getAttr, or maybe you may say something like a dot as well. So let us give it a try and see whether we can get the name. Yes, precisely. You see, I'm getting the person's name here. So using this is exactly similar to using this code here. getAttr name. So writing this and writing this is exactly similar. Similarly, if I want to get an age of this, probably I can say P1.age, and yes, I'm getting the I'm getting the value of name as person 1, getting the value of age as person's age value 30. So if I can access the name and age, both of them are attributes, by using dot syntax, can I not access that print info by using dot syntax? Of course I can. So probably now I can say p1 dot print info. Print info requires the person object, right? So this is the person object, no big deal. I'm going to come back here and say p1. Right now it feels like shit chili, like you are calling that print info on p1 and you are passing p1. It's okay for time being, it's fine. All I'm saying here is, see where we started and where we are going to. So when I say run, you see my function is getting called. Don't get confused by looking at the same output twice. It's just because I printed those two by using dot syntax, and these two lines are getting printed by calling that function. And if you don't believe me, let me just come back here and say, hey, I am inside print info. Do the same thing here. I am inside, let's say I am inside can vote. Okay, so let's see if I can run this code. Probably you can see inside print info, I'm getting the name and address of that age. More important is I'm calling that print info function on p1, saying p1 dot print info. Same thing is true for p2. I can access name, I can access age by using dot or get attr. At the same time, I can also say p2 dot print info, and I can pass that p2. So again, this is how we can do it. Again, I can call print info. At the same time, I can also call can vote as well by passing p2. And guess what? You see, I'm inside print info. I'm getting the person 2's data. I'm inside can vote, and I'm saying like, oh, person 2 is not eligible for voting. Naturally, it's not eligible for voting because person 2's age is below 18. You see, now we are going in a direction where an object, you can think of it as a collection of attribute value pairs. And in that case, few attributes can hold the actual values and few attributes can hold address of other functions. So basically, when you talk about something called as an object, probably you can imagine that object now is a collection of key value pairs or attribute value pairs. And precisely speaking, if you just look at this diagram, you can see that few of them are representing values, few of them are representing the functions. That's what the object's basic definition is, or that's what the object's raw picture is. So this is how an object gets created in the memory. Of course, this is not the final solution. I'm not saying that this is how we are going to write the code. Never. This is the starting point. This is just for your understanding what actually happens when you create an object there. What actually happens when you write a class and when you try adding all the attributes by saying setAttr, getAttr and stuff like that. So now I'm saying like you can use a function called as setAttr and getAttr, or you can also use the dot syntax as well. So you may say p2 dot name, p2 dot age to set the values, and p2 dot name and p2 dot age to get the values. So both of them are okay. You may say setAttr or you may say getAttr. Guys, all of you, can you tell me whether have you understood this, please? If not, ask a question. I'll try to repeat it without having any problem. I want you to understand this basic step. I know I'm taking a little bit longer time for you to go for the actual solution, but it is worth. I'll tell you later why it is worth. Okay, so probably when you say something like this, there is a little bit confused. Who's that? Senthil, tell me what is the confusion. We'll try to rectify the problem. Vipin, means a class is independent, functions are independent, while calling an object, we are using them as a combination. Absolutely right. So Vipin, you made a very nice statement and very right one. So basically, functions are written separately, you can say so, and objects are written separate. Objects are getting created separately, and of course, the class is just adding them or just bringing them together. Or maybe you can say a real object is going to bring the data and the functions together. That's what I'm trying to explain from yesterday, that class is an entity which is going to give a birth to an object. An object is the way you are going to have a data and the functions coming together as one single unit. Exactly right. Pranit, no problem. It's my pleasure. What is that? Senthil, you're saying repeat once. Can you tell me what exactly do I need to repeat? So I'll repeat that part. Utkarsh, we use setAttr. Yes, we use setAttr for setting the attribute. Also, you may say p1.name is equals to something and p2.name is equals to something. Check this out. I'll say p3 is equals to person. This is the third object. This time, instead of using setAttr, I'll say p3.name is equals to person3. This is something which is kind of a shortcut, you can say. This is p3, I'm sorry, p3.h, which is equals to 40 again. And I'll try to print s3, I'm sorry, p3, my bad, p3 dot underscore underscore dict. And you will see that again, we are having p3 with name and age attribute. So this is a shortcut, you can say. So you may use dot or you may use setAttr for setting the values. At the same time, if you want to get the values, then you also can use the getAttr, or maybe you can use the something like a dot syntax. So probably I can say something like p3 dot name. At the same time, I can say p3 dot h, you know, p3.h. So basically you may say something like dot, or you may say setAttr for setting the values, or you may use a getAttr or may use dot behind the scene like this. Now you might wonder and you might ask the question, if it was a dot that you wanted to use, why did you start with getAttr then? You should have told us directly to use dot. No, because I want to tell you one more thing. When you say dot, behind the scene, it calls the setAttr and getAttr. So if you know, like we are using dot here, you can now imagine, oh, behind the scene it is calling setAttr. I mean, if there is no dot, and if I want to really do something, then I have to do it by using something like setAttr and getAttr. So you're not dependent on dot now. The good thing here is, check this out. This is another question. There's another thing which I want to put here. See here. This time I'm going to use a getAttr and say address, for example. The address is Pune. Watch what I'm trying to show you here. So probably I'm going to come back here and say, hey, tell me the address of that person. This time, look at that. I've added an address by using setAttr, but I can directly get that address by using a dot syntax, you know. So if I say run, I still will see the address here and I'll still be able to get a value of an address. Other thing, I use dot here to set a value of an age attribute. I can do in a reverse way. So I can say getAttr p3 and age is a attribute that I want to get the value of. And you see everything works. So probably you can use dot to set the value, dot to get the value. You can use a dot to set the value, getAttr to get the value. You can use set function, setAttr function to set the value, while dot to get the value. So this is a kind of combination. It doesn't matter whether you are using dot or whether you are using set or get function. Both of them, they are interchangeable. So both of them will give you exactly same idea. Okay. So basically this is kind of a, you can say a kind of optional thing. You may go for this or you may go for this, whatever you choose. Okay, dictionary is the only option to store the data into an object. This is not what is getting stored in the memory. This is a representation of your object. I'm kind of repeating myself one more time. This is not how the data is getting stored in the memory. This is a dictionary representation of your data, so that you will get a clear-cut idea what is there in the object. So this is just for our understanding that inside my object, there are key value pairs, there are attribute value pairs like name person 1, age 40, address Pune. These are attribute value pairs. Okay. Nidhi, how can we use a print info on P3 to get an address? You can't, because unless you add this, you will not be able to do this. So probably what you have to do here is, let me just show you here. If I try to say p3.printinfo and p3.printinfo p3 right now, this is going to crash my application. You see, exit code equals to 1. It means like my application has crashed. Why? Because it is saying, hey, person does not have any attribute called as printinfo. Have you seen this? I'm trying to call that function printinfo, but it's not working because I never have added that printinfo in an object. So Nidhi, if I really want to do it, all I have to say here is p3.printinfo, you know, p3.printinfo, which is equals to printinfo here. That's it. Okay. Or I may say setAttr, like what I said earlier, p3 of can vote which is equals to can vote. I hope you can understand both of them will do the same job. When I say run, see this time everything works. I see that code equals to 0 inside print info, and I'm getting the object, getting the details of P3. I hope, Nidhi, that answers your question. So this is what you are looking for. Unless you add this explicitly into that object, it will never go there automatically, you know. So if you want to call that can vote, you have to first add that. If you want to call that print info, you have to first add that, and then you will be able to call it. Okay, good. Prerna, currently we are printing the common attributes between two objects. If you are having additional attribute of the print, exactly. So wait for a minute, Prerna. I'll give you a better option of this. That's what I said. This is not the final option. This is for our understanding what happens behind the scene. Now we'll go for the other solution or the final solution where we will simplify this. You know, I'll talk about that in a minute, but let's see. What is that? Maybe Rutuja, your question. By using p3.attribute name equals to value, can we create a new attribute? Actually, I don't know whether you have noticed it or not. When I created that person object, it was completely empty. So when I say dot name, name wasn't there. Name is something that got added automatically, because when you say dot or when you say set attr, it performs two operations. It sees if there is any attribute with that name, it sets its value. But if the attribute doesn't exist, then it really creates an attribute into your object. Okay, so basically it is doing it. I mean, without you noticing it, it is doing it. Okay. Okay, so this is what you are asking. Yeah, Sunil, your question. You use a dot operator, we must use one member is a reference of function like a print info. Yeah, we are coming back to that point, Sunil. Just give me a minute, we'll see that. Aisha, your question, how to get a dictionary keys value from user? Of course, dictionary keys is not what we are going to get from user. Values is what we are going to get the user. In a sense, we'll ask user to enter the value for name or to enter the value for address. It's not like we'll ask user to enter the key for a dictionary or key for an object. Okay, we'll get the value from user, not the keys. Okay, so probably if you see here, I think things are going in a particular direction. I see that the things are like we were doing earlier. We were keeping the function separately. We were doing all of these things maybe in a different way earlier, but now we are going for a different way. Okay, I'll keep this example for your reference and I'll go to the next example. Now, this is the most important example. Whatever we have seen so far, I'm going to bring every single thing into this example, and I'm just going to show you the transition, the final transition. Okay, check this out. Can we say p3.age equals to p2.age to assign the p2.age value of p3.age? Yes, you can. Rohit, yes, you can. Okay. Okay, so now pay attention, pay real close attention. If you're writing the code, don't do it. First, understand this. This is the final transition. After that, we are going to start writing the final code, or maybe the you can say the regular code. Regular in a sense, the general code you will find in other websites and in other programs. Okay, so see what is required to understand that code. I think a person is enough. Let's try changing it. Let's say this is a car class. You know, I'm going to create an empty class right now. We'll talk about this in a minute, but I'm going to start writing an empty class. Let's see what is going to be done here. Okay, so I want to create an object here. Let's say car1, or better I'll say C1, which is equals to car. So this is my first object. I'm going to add two attributes here. Again, attribute can be added by using dot, or attribute can be added by using setAttr. You choose your way. I'm going to say dot because dot is a simpler way to understand. So probably I'm going to say model is equals to, let's say I-20, for example, and C1.company, which is equals to Hyundai. So probably what that dot is going to do behind the scene is like it is going to check if the model and company exists. Of course, they are getting added for the first time. So dot internally will add the new attribute inside your object. So imagine the object. Object is having a model and company as two attribute value pairs with value I-20 and Hyundai. Good. Now what? I want to print the car data. Like what I did earlier, I'm going to create a function here. I'll say that this is going to be let's say print info, which is going to get a car object, and probably I'm going to say this is going to be a car's model, which is kind of car dot model. I'm going to make it a little bit shorter now because we already have seen that last time. And I'll say the car's company. I'm assuming that the company will be an attribute for that car, which will be kind of there in all the car objects. That's what I'm assuming, and that's how I'm writing the code. Okay, so now how do I call that function? To call that function, first we need to put that inside that car. To do this, I'm going to say P1, I'm sorry, the C1.printinfo is equals to printinfo. Please remember, this is a function alias. We don't need any parentheses there. So now we are adding the attributes here, just for your reference, adding required attributes. And now let's use those attributes. So maybe getting the values. Why am I doing it? Maybe we can directly call that function C1.printinfo, and we'll have to pass a C1 here. So when I say run, probably you will get the C1's information, like model is equals to I20 and company is equals to Hyundai. Things are looking really good. I mean, this is how we generally would want to write the code. But there is a small problem. Again, there is a small problem. Let us see what is the problem and let us see what is the solution for that. I hope everyone is paying attention, and not attention, the close attention, because now this is the final transition. What I said earlier, let me repeat myself. I'm creating an object here and I'm passing that object into that print info, and maybe that print info is printing the car's model and car's company without having any problem. Everything is working fine. But because this is a global function, when I say global function, that simply means that function is kind of, this function is available outside the class. So maybe I can say print info and pass 20, and I'll commit a suicide here. Yeah, see, I've committed suicide here. You see, integer object does not have an attribute called as model. We already have seen that yesterday. So this is wrong, and I don't want this to happen. So how do I do this then? How do I fix the problem then? To fix the problem, there are two problems here. Problem number one, I just am saying, like, I mean, hypothetically, I'm saying C1 and print info are dependent. They are tightly dependent. Of course, I know that, but just I'm saying it. There is no way I can prove it. And the other thing is, like, because that function is outside, I can call that function without passing that dictionary or without passing that class object, and I can pass it anything and program will crash. Now I'm just going to restrict, exactly, Prerna. Now I'm going to restrict that function to be called on only that object C1. How do we do this? As simple as that. Watch what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to move it here and I'll say that, hey, now let's remove that pass and move this function inside that class. For the first time, what we did here is, like, we have added our class. I mean, the class was empty till last time. Still it is empty from an attribute point of view, but now we have just moved one function named printinfo right inside the class. Now my class is going to have, or class is already having, a function named printinfo. Now, what has just happened? Pay attention to this one now. We'll first do it in this way, and then I'll keep on showing you a few things, and then we'll enable those statements again. Okay, pay attention. First, let me just print that C1 dot underscore underscore dict underscore underscore. Just I want to see what is the current scenario. Let me go back here and say run. I see this is an empty right now. Okay, see what happens now. I am going to move this function here. So I'm sorry, I'm going to move this function here, maybe, and let us print this one more time. You still see the object is having no data inside it. By the way, dictionary is going to represent only the data. Okay, I'll show you one more example. Before I do that transition, I'll show you one more example. See what is the what is that you need to remember. So like C1 is an object of car class. Like C1 has a dict or dunder dict attribute. The car class is having similar dunder dict attribute. Car class is going to tell you everything related to the car class, and C1 is going to tell you everything related to only that object, not that class, but only that object. Watch what happens. The first dictionary is going to tell you what all different things are there in the class, while the second dictionary is going to tell you what are different attributes available inside that object. Okay. Yes, Vishal, I have not moved that function yet because I just made it out. I mean, I just moved it outside the class. I want to show you one more time. So look at this. So now look at the C capital car dot underscore underscore dict underscore underscore. It tells me that there is a module main, whatever it is. It has underscore underscore dict underscore underscore, which is creating a dictionary of it, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now I'm going to move this function. Watch what happens. I'm going to move this function inside that class. Now, because I moved that function outside the, I mean, from outside to inside that class, if I run this code, probably you can see that that print info now become the part of class. One more time, when I was not having anything there, when the print function, when the class was empty, it wasn't having that print info. Watch this. It is having something like a module. It is having dictionary, that's dunder dict, then dunder vcref, and dunder doc. That's what you are having in that class. But now when I move this class, move this function inside the class, and when I run my code, still object is not having anything, but look at the class. The class is having module, which was there earlier. Class is now having a new attribute, print info, which is pointing to a print info's function, which is now inside the car. It is still having dunder dict, then dunder vcref, and dunder doc. So they were already there, but this is the new attribute which is available inside the class now. Now, because it is inside the class, it will be referred by your object as well. I mean, the object doesn't have any attribute value pairs separately, but because this attribute is created, because this class, because this object is created by using the same class car, it is going to use all the methods, all the functions available inside that class. So whatever is there in the class can be used by that object. So what is there in the class? Right now there is something like a print info. So yeah, I can call that print info like this. So basically what I'm trying to show you here is whenever you are having the tight dependency like this, I know object is dependent on print info, means the print info is dependent on a class because object is created by using the class. I can take a leverage of this and I can move that function inside the inside that class. This is what we are going to keep on writing henceforth. So next time onwards, when I see that a class is, or maybe a function is related to a class, instead of writing it outside, I'll just move it inside. What are we going to achieve? We are going to achieve a couple of things. Number one, we are going to achieve this one here. Now there is no need to say c1.printinfo is equals to printinfo because this will be already taken care by moving that method inside this. Okay, so earlier we had to say this explicitly, c1.printinfo equals to printinfo. Now I don't have to say it because it's already there in the class. Whatever is there in the class, by default the object can refer, by default the c1 can refer. That's the importance of having that function inside the class. Okay, now again, couple of things. Because we have moved this, listen to this very carefully. Because we have moved this function inside the class will say, hey, I know that when you're calling this function, you are going to say something like c1.printinfo and you are passing the c1 here because you are expecting a car. So what class is going to say, hey, you don't have to do this anymore. So watch what I'm trying to show you here. So what class says, you don't have to pass that c1 here because now that print info is inside the class. The print info will be called like this by by Python runtime. You see, when I say print info c1 or c1.printinfo, behind the scene, the print info will get called from that car, that car.printinfo, and then the c1 will be passed here. So you don't have to pass any parameter here. Okay, because it is not going to pass that parameter here, the c1 will automatically get passed by default in that method here. Now again, when you are moving that function inside the car class, there is a small change. This is optional, but this is a kind of required. So basically when I say print info, instead of using car here, this is an optional, but it's kind of required stuff for later use. So instead of saying car, say self. Now, generally, when you are in Python, every method which is a part of your class will take the first attribute as a self. Self means self. Self means self. Self is nothing but the same class object. Yes, those people who are coming from the other languages, this is called as a this. I mean, this is this. Self is called as a this. Here in Python, this is called as a self. Self means it is going to point to the self object. Self object is nothing but here is a C1. So when you say C1.printinfo, behind the scene, it is going to call car.printinfo by passing C1. What is C1? This is an object of car. It is going to pass that object on its own. So for me, see how many things got simplified here. For me, I don't have to say c1.printinfo equals to printinfo. You know, last time I had to say that, because unless I said this, I was not able to call that function on top of this C1. So this is something we said last time. We don't have to. This is something we were doing last time. You know, you can recall that. Now this is something which we can delete, or we don't need it anymore. And that's why when you are writing the class, it's always recommended that you should put all the functions which are related to your data inside the class. And that's how we are representing our class. The only terminological change, don't call this as a function because it's not available outside the class. This is generally called as the method. Again, method is nothing but the function inside the class. But again, to be precise, to use a right terminology, don't call this as a function, call this as a method. And again, every method in the class will accept the first parameter as a self. Self means currently pointing object. The currently pointing object is C1. So C1's model will be printed and C1's company will be printed. If you don't believe me, let me run my code. There is nothing right now. My bad. I needed to uncomment that code and see it is kind of calling my method. And yes, it is trying to print the output. See how simple that class looks like. I know we started from a different point. We came back to a different point now, but this is the transition. This is how the POP code gets converted into OP. Vice versa, actually. OP code gets converted into POP, you know. So that self here is pointing to the current object on which you have called that method. What do you mean by this? This is not required anymore. So I'm going to delete that. See this, probably Abhilash, see this again. This is going to be a C2, the second object, you know. I'm going to create a new class of new car class object, and I'll say C2.model, which is equals to, let's use something else. Let's use I10, for example, and C2.company, which is equals to Hyundai again. And then I can say C2.printinfo. Let me call this method, and you see that it is kind of printing C2's detail, because when I call printinfo, what is going to happen? Printinfo will get called, sorry, car.printinfo gets called behind the scene by passing C2. So what is C2 here? C2 is the object on which we call the method, and that C2 will be treated inside the printinfo as a self. So basically, what is a self here? Self is going to be the current object on which the method, on which the method is called. You know, so when you talk about that self, self is going to point to the current object. For example, in this case, what's the current object? C1. In this case, what is your current object? It's C2. So as and when you call that method on a reference on an object, that object will become the self. Self is just, think about it as a reference, think about it as a pointer. So this is always going to point out to the current object on which the method is called. Okay, Abhilash, are you okay with that? Have you understood this? Probably this is what do you mean by a self. Self is nothing but pointing to the current object. Guys, can you please confirm whether have you understood this? Any more questions so far? Okay, so if you don't have any question, let me ask you a quick question then. Probably we have thought of writing a class, and we said like this is the print info, which is a part of this class, and that's the reason why we started moving this inside the class. So henceforth, whenever you need any class, just first think about all the functionalities you need, start moving those methods there, and then start creating an object, and then start calling those methods. For example, I'm just going to go back here, write in the same file, and say I need a person class one more time. See, this is another version of person class. Last time we did it, but this time we'll make it even better. So I know my person class should create, or instead of writing it here, it's better we can do it in a separate file. Makes sense? This is a page 5. Okay. Here we are. I'm going to create a person class, and I know that person class is going to need at least 2 methods, print info and something like a can vote. So I can start writing them inside that class immediately after creating the class. Oh, one more thing, I forgot to mention this. I hope you remember I mentioned this earlier when we were trying to write a function. Every function or every block will have something like 3 triple double quotes. I hope you still recall this. We call it as, anyone? Docstring. Absolutely. So what is this class? Maybe I'll say this class, just for again your documentation, this class represents a person object, blah blah blah, literally, blah blah blah, whatever. So you say whatever you want to say here, doesn't matter, but just make sure that you are having a kind of a docstring here, so those who want to use that class, they can easily get the help out of it. Anyways, for me, the important stuff here is I want to have 2 methods, print info. You see, because we are in PyCharm, it automatically takes that self as a first parameter. This is kind of mandatory, and this is a compulsory in Python. Other languages will by default use that this as a hidden member. Here it's by default visible, and that is how it is. Now I'm going to come back. I know later on I'm going to have at least 3 attributes, name, age, and address. So we'll say that this is going to be the name. I'll say this is, self.name. Right now there is nothing, but we'll do it. Yes, we will, Prerna, we will. For now, it's okay. We'll see, let the application crash for a minute, and then we'll solve the crash by moving all the attributes inside the class. Okay, going step by step again. I can come back here and say this is print, again, print, let's say address, for example. I'm assuming that this is going to have an address as well. And maybe I'm going to assume one more thing, that is an age, and say self.age. That's it. I need one more. That's what we have done last time. Can vote, a favorite function. Maybe I can say self.age, which is greater than or equals to 18. If that is the case, we are going to say print. Maybe this. I'm sorry, my bad. Self.name is eligible because greater than 18 is eligible for voting, and else, nope, this person is not eligible for voting. That's it. This is a person class. I hope you can understand how those methods are getting added here, why those methods are getting added here, and how will they behave when I create an object of it. So maybe I'm going to say P1, that's a first object I'm going to create of that class person. And I can easily say person.name is equals to person1. That's P1.age is equals to, let's say 20, and P1.address, which is equals to Pune, one more time, and probably P1.printinfo. At the same time, P1.canvote. You see, when I say run, I'll get exactly what I have thought of. So I've thought of getting the person details. I did. And I was thinking about getting the person's eligibility for voting. I got it. So this is what we were looking for, and this is the cleaner solution. So this is how we generally will write the class. Of course, this is not the final version. This is maybe 1 or 2 steps before we go to the final step. But still, this looks a lot cleaner than the other version we were dealing with last time. The other versions were just for understanding, but this is now, I mean, we came to a conclusion, like we wanted to class and the methods working together, and this clean representation of a class exactly shows what we said earlier. So last time we just said that, but now we can prove that. You see, person is having print info, can vote. That means both these methods are dependent on that class. So they are inside the class, means they are dependent on that class. Okay, so this is how it is, and probably now you can understand that things are going well. Okay. Okay. Looking at this representation, starting from line number 1 to line number 22, I guess, do you have any question? Because now I'm going to add only few details to make this a complete class. This is still not a complete class, but I want to make a complete class. But before that, just want to confirm, do you have any question on this class or on this version right now? Whatever we have seen so far? Okay, no one is saying anything. That simply means there is no question. Okay, I'm going to consider your silence as your no question. Good. Okay, so maybe I'll keep what is the scope of a class. We'll mention that in a minute. But right now, I'll just keep that P1 commented, and I want to create one more object. Now see the problem and see the solution. Pay attention again. This is another transition. So again, I'm going to come back here and say, hey, P2 is another object I'm going to create here. And maybe I forgot to initialize that object with the attributes like name, age, and address. So by mistake, I went to that print info and I called, say, p2.canVote just to see whether the person can go for voting. So I forgot to initialize it, maybe by mistake again, or maybe deliberately, who cares? But I didn't do that initialization. I mean, I didn't add those attributes there, and I'm now trying to call print info and can vote. What do you think? What is going to happen? Any guess? What is going to happen if I try to call that method print info and can vote? What is going to happen? Can we insert a property into class? That's what I'm going to see right now. You know, yes, there will be a big crash. You know, so it's like again committing suicide, because you know that the can vote and print info, both of them are expecting attributes like name, address, and age. And because you haven't added them, you see your application is crashing. It says person object has no attribute name. So basically on line number maybe 6 somewhere here, it is saying, hey, I'm just trying to print the name, but I don't know where the name is. That's the reason why that Python is kind of raising that exception, saying, hey, it's not available, just add it, or maybe don't call that function first. I mean, everything was working earlier, but all of a sudden it started giving me a crash. Any suggestion here? How do I fix the problem? Any suggestion? Is there any concept of like null or zero in like Java? Yes, there is none. We talked about that. Yes, default values, exactly. So if you don't know the values, then we should go for a default value. But again, don't you think that default value means I need to ask my caller to do it? It's not like I can do it automatically. I have to ask my caller to say, hey, if you don't know the values, please at least add the default values so that your application would not crash. If you don't do this, your application really is going to crash. So probably what I can do here is I can come back here and I can add a kind of instruction saying, hey, please try to add the attributes, maybe something like name, address, and age, so that the application would not crash. Who cares? So the application would not crash. You know, I can add something like this, but you know that this is not the final solution. I was kidding, in fact. So this is not what you're going to do. You know, just adding a help file there or adding a line in a documentation string will not solve the problem. I want to restrict that user to add these attributes. How do I do it? Let's do this. Let us create one more function. Let's say this is going to be maybe add attributes, whatever you can name it as, doesn't matter. And here I'll say self.name, which is equals to default, you know, self.address, which is, self.address, which is a default 0, I mean the empty value, and say what is the last one? Age, which is 0. So instead of separately initializing them here, I'm going to create a function, the function which is going to initialize them with the default values. Absolutely, Prerna. Who reads the documentation? Absolutely right. Who reads the documentation? Good thing. So I'm going to write a function. I'm going to write a method called as add attributes, and we'll add the default values of them. So in case if you don't want to initialize the values, you just call that function and your job will be done. So all I'm going to say here is, hey, you don't have to say that thrice. Just call only one function called as an add attributes, and it will solve the problem. Of course, your application will not crash. Of course, you will get the default values, but your application will not crash. That's the thing which I wanted to achieve. But again, don't you see the problem? The problem here is, I mean, though I have created a method, but again, calling that method is in user's hand, in a sense, in scholar's hand. Don't you see that problem again? What if my caller has not called that method? What is going to happen? You see, I tried to solve that problem by adding a method and I asked user to call that method, but my user or my caller is so dumb, he didn't call that function, he didn't call that method. Again, application is crashing. Now what? I think we have to think a better solution then. Of course, like last time, I can put here one again line of documentation saying, hey, just add that function or call that method like add attributes. But again, it's not compulsion, right? We are just saying call that method, but there is no restriction. Now, how do I handle the scenario then? I don't want my application to crash. I mean, if user has forgot to initialize it, I still want my application to work. I still want my application to give me all the default value instead of crashing. So how do I do this? Look at this. Pay attention. You are in Python. Python has made it so simple. Python says, see, what do you want to do? You want to do two things. Number one, you want to add the default values of these attributes. Okay. Number two, you want that method to be called automatically so that no one, if initializing the values, then that method should get called automatically without you doing it or without caller doing it explicitly. I said, yes, this is what I'm looking for. So if you want to do this, all you have to do this is simply remove the method name, whatever you have said, and add the method name as dunder init. So it's underscore underscore init underscore underscore. Okay, now I'm going to come back here. I'll just add one print statement. I'll say inside underscore underscore init underscore underscore. Watch what happens. I have not called this method in this context. I mean, I just created that function, just created that object. I'm just going to move these two methods in comment for a minute. See, I've created that object P2, and now I'm going to run my code. Oh, did you see that something? My init method is getting called automatically. Okay, so we are using this dunder init. We are calling it as a dunder, by the way. So we are saying this dunder means underscore underscore init underscore underscore, so that, I mean, we can use that method for initializing all of our attributes by their default values. Exactly. So now if I create one more object, watch this. If I create one more object and if I run my code, look, the init method is getting called twice, two times, once for P2 and second time for P3. If I create one more object, P4, see, it is going to get called one more time. So this is getting called three times because we are having three objects, three live objects here. And whenever you are creating an object, this method init will automatically get called, will compulsory get called. Even though caller is not doing anything, still this method will get called for a caller. This method is, in terms of Python, this method is called as a initializer method. Initializer method. This method, let me just put a kind of a comment here, gets called automatically for every object of this class. Very important, for every object this class, this method gets automatically called. How? Now, one more thing for the people who are coming from other languages, it is similar to constructor. Constructor in Java, constructor in C++, constructor in C#, Swift, whatnot. So this is similar to constructor. I'm not calling it as a constructor because if you are coming from other languages, you might have seen that in other languages, the constructor is exactly having the same name as that of the class name. So this is not a constructor. This is rather an initializer. I don't know why, but I get convinced by the Python's terminology. Actually, a constructor is not constructing an object. The object gets constructed automatically. You're initializing an object in the constructor. The definition of a constructor also says the same thing. Constructor is a function which initializes the object. If it is initializing the object, why are you calling it as a constructor then? So other languages are using a terminology called as constructor, but Python says it's not a constructor. Object gets allocated automatically when you say P1 or P2 is equals to person parenthesis. What you're doing here with that method is like you are initializing that object with all of the default values of those attributes. So the proper terminology is initializer, not the constructor. And that's the reason Python uses a terminology that gives you more information about what it is meant for. So dunder init is meant for initializing your object, called as initializer method. I don't know why, but again, I mean, it may be because I started my career with Python, so I'm following the trap of Python. So probably this is something which is followed in other languages like Swift as well. So if you go to Swift, that also says init. Init means initializer. So this is where, you are using the right terminology to do right things. Anyways, coming back to the point here again, when you say init is called as an initializer method, and initializer method will automatically call. And when I say automatically called, this is nothing but a kind of a way to add all the attributes by default. So even if you not calling that method explicitly, the method will get called implicitly for you. So that will solve that crash problem we were having earlier. You see, at least I'm not getting any crash. I know it is kind of a default values, but see, it's not crashing the application. That's more important for me. Okay, so are we creating a dunder? Is it the constructor way? Yes, this is the constructor exactly in the other languages, but we call it as an initializer. Tanya, your question, every time a new object gets constructed, this method is getting called _init__. True, because it's an initializer method. Absolutely right. Within parameterized init is also possible. Wait for it. You will see that later. Okay. Adesh, can we say __init__ name of the method? Can we say init name of the method? Not getting your question. Are you saying like this is the method's name? Yes, that is the method's name. __int__ is the method's name. And such, there are almost like 10 different methods we are going to write in next couple of days. So there is __, add __, there is __, sub __, so on and so forth. There are many different methods. We'll talk about them. There is a topic called as operator overloading, and there we'll talk about this stuff there. So we'll see why and where the dunder methods are required. But to start with, we have a dunder method here. This dunder method is called as a this method is called as an initializer method. Now, coming back to the methods point of view, let me just go back here and give you a kind of clear-cut idea. Now, this is not only for Python. This is in general. Whenever you are learning any language, this is how you are going to see it. See, function is going to be a part of every single language you learn. And this is a kind of, maybe you can think of it as a kind of a standard. So probably I'm just going to use this font here. I'll call it as a function. So function is everywhere. No matter which language you are going to learn, function is everywhere. Now, when you talk about the function is having two types. I mean, a function is kind of a global function, which also called as a non-OOP function. This is the terminology again. Or it's also called as a naked function. A function which does not require any object to get called is called as a global function, or it's called as a non-OOP function, or it's also called as a naked function. On the other hand, there is another function, another type of function called as a OOP function. Okay, this is also called as a method, the one which we are using there. So most of the languages, it's true. So this is called as a method. You call it as an OOP function, or you call it as a method. Precisely, if you just want to say like what's the big difference between these two, maybe I'll just put one line description saying, when you talk about the function is the one which is outside of any class. So declared outside of any class. While when you talk about the method or OOP function, this is declared inside of any class. So a function written inside of any class is called as OOP function, or it's also called as a method. And a function which is written outside of any class is called as a global function, non-OOP function, or naked function, whatever you call it as. Okay, now when you talk about the OOP function or method precisely, there are 5 different types of such methods will exist in any language in your class. One of them we just have seen right now, it's called as an initializer. Now I'm making it general, initializer, I'm making it generic, not general. I'm making it generic. So I'm going to call it as a constructor as well. Few languages generally call it as a constructor. So initializer, it's US UK, I guess. It's US UK, doesn't matter. So one is called as initializer, which is also called as a constructor in other languages. The other one is an opposite of initializer, sometimes called as a de-initializer. We'll talk about this tomorrow. In other languages, those who are saying that is a constructor, these languages say it is a destructor. Another one, we are going to see that again tomorrow, is called as a setter. Setter is called as a mutator. And there is something called as the getter, which is also called as an inspector in other languages. I mean, most of the languages call setter and getter, or you can also call it as a mutator and inspector. And finally, this is called as a facilitator, or it's called as a utility function. So every language will give you a kind of, I mean, there are 5 types of them, and you can use any type of methods inside your class. Out of them, we just have seen only one, that's initializer. So initializer has its own purpose. Initializer is used for initializing your object. It is the one with which you can, add the default values of those attributes, so that in case if you are referring those attributes later in your program, later in your class somewhere, your application should not crash. So that's where the initializer is going to play an important role. So this is an initializer. Deinitializer, maybe the next one, setter, getter, and facilitator. We are going to see that tomorrow. So in tomorrow's case, we'll explore 4 remaining, and we'll maybe make the final version of our class. Okay. So now you must have got an idea like how to write a class today. You know how to add a method inside it. What is that initializer method doing here? And probably you might have also seen like what is a use case that initializer can be used with. So you can see the use case where you want to add the default values of those attributes so that your application should not crash. In that case, you should go for initializer. I think that is it for today, because we have seen many transitions. I don't want to add a couple of more things here. It's better we can see the remaining things tomorrow. Okay. But the important thing is, before we call it a day, I just want to ask a quick question. Have you seen the transition where we started earlier today and where have we reached so far? So probably if you've seen the transition, this is this is the POP code, while what we are writing here is now an OOP code. So basically all that OOP code is coming from the POP. POP stands for procedure oriented, where your focus will be on only functions, but that's why we are kind of making our life simple by moving it to a kind of OOP language. Yes. Yes, that's it. Anyways, now hopefully this will also give you a kind of insights, or this will also help you to understand OOP from other languages as well. So those who are learning the other languages, or those who already have learned the other languages, maybe they can compare that transition with the other languages, and you definitely can learn the other languages as well. So probably anyways, I think that is it for today. Let us call it a day. We'll continue tomorrow, and I hope you will get some chance to look at this code one more time today. Probably we'll look at some advanced topics tomorrow. Okay. What is that, Adesh? Can we do it like this? Get the name of a function? Yeah, of course, yes. Tomorrow we are going to talk about more things into it. That's called as a self introspection. It's called as introspection, or it's also called as a self inspection. Okay, Adesh, there is a topic called as a introspection. There we'll talk about it. Okay. Okay, so I think it's better we can call it a day. We'll see tomorrow exactly at 8 o'clock. Have a very great day ahead, and please take some time, look at the transition one more time. So tomorrow we can directly start writing the final version of our code. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a very great day ahead. Bye-bye. I'll see you tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Bye.